I would, there's, you know, I would defer that to the experts in the water and wastewater, but from a financial perspective,
I mean, because we know our gas is a
correct.
negative,
No, correct.
and there's probably
No, you're
water out
correct.
there we're pumping out that we don't
I
need,
was-
that we don't even know where it's at.
My comment is assuming that we're operating efficiently. You know, and right now, this is a budget based on our current state. Now, eventually, we'll get to a point that will allow us to operate at peak efficiency. I've been a part of utility systems that operate at peak efficiency, and they don't lose money. They transfer $12 million to the general fund in Brownsville because they operate at peak efficiency. So that's what I anticipate can happen once you get a hold of the system and get a hold of the finances. I got here, and like I said, we're 24 months behind, and we're finally getting to a place where we can make some decisions from the financial perspective.
And council, I'm going to ask you guys, please be recognized before you speak, so we can go in order. Because you still have the floor, Councilman Hernandez.
That's all I have. I mean, any other questions?
Councilwoman Trevino, do you have anything? Anything in specific, Virginia?
I mean, just, I guess pretty much like everybody else, the streets, but I mean, I also wanted to invest in our employees as well. I mean, that would be nice, but, streets are a major priority and infrastructure, so.
Okay. I'm going to, Councilwoman Hernandez, do you have any specific question?
No, I just agree with that, what you're saying, when we had our training thing, that, you know, everybody was, you know, all on the same page with the infrastructure and the streets and stuff, and we just need to move forward, you know, do what we gotta do.
Okay. Councilman Hernandez, you have a question?
Yes, insurance, employee insurance. I've noticed that there was like a 20% increase, uptick, whatever you want to call it.
I was talking to that consultant when our budgeting process started. They anticipated that there was going to be a 20% increase from our Blue Cross Blue Shield. I rolled that into the budget in anticipation of those increases. Right now, I think our director is in the process of going through that with our consultant. There is an increase. Oh, I'll let her.
Yes, we started today. We're going to already advertise for the benefits this week. So it was an 8-point just with Blue Cross Blue Shield, with just having with them currently, it's 18.5% increase. So right now we're in that process, and we're now putting it out to bid by starting for this Wednesday, this week. Okay, so yeah, so we're going to be bringing in, they're going to be advertising, and we've already got to put the RFP into process online for them to come and see what we can get for the best for our people. That's what I'm fighting for, is what's going to be best and what we're going to need for our people. Okay? Any other questions? Nothing else?
Thank you. That'll be adjusted to the actuals once we have those numbers. So it could, if we get any kind of difference between that 20% that I roll into our benefits, then the budget will go down by that amount.
Another good question on the salary analysis was done. The benefits portion of it, did all 10 of those cities that responded to the survey, I think it was, that's what Dr. Warden said, they had to respond for us to get the information.
Yes, sir.
Did they all provide the same kind of services, amount of services? What else, I mean,
You had,
is that comparable? Is that in the report?
You have different communities that have, of course, different services, what maybe would affect the number of employees. For example, you have the city of Hondo that has a power system. We don't have a power system. However, we do have a gas system. I don't think they have a gas system. But I think it affects more the number of employees than it did that are currently employed by whatever entity than it did. Just maybe what you're referring to is I'm trying to make sure I understand. You're saying that we look at their benefits as as each individual, or?
Yeah, individual benefits, a salary is what you make, but it's not just that you get paid, you really get paid your benefits plus salary, right? Or
Right.
salary plus benefits.
Right.
So, if the benefits are there, I mean,
Yes.
my question is, are our benefits the same, or comparable to those 10 cities that we're compared to?
From what I gather, and if I remember, and I'll get the information for you, actually, they're not as, I hate to say, it, they're not as good as other communities. And I can get you some detail on that, particularly health insurance and our, health insurance and our retirement. So those, I mean, of course, there's other factors, but those two benefits, a lot of times other communities have a 2-to-1 match, for retirement. And I can look at that. I think most communities offer that, that we compare to. And the other thing is again, the health insurance premiums. Just the actual, not the premium, the rate, but the type of insurance and the quality of the insurance there is. And so those are two of the factors. But I can get that information for you.
And the other question is just, do those 10 cities provide their employees incentives? Like that one-time pay or anything like that?
I don't know that they.
All that information, I mean, it's money, it adds up, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would like to know.
Yeah, I don't know that they provide those incentives. I don't know that was part of the scope, their scope of work. But we can provide that information. I can see what I can find. I'll put it that.
Well, whether they pay benefits and to what extent they pay benefits.
Right.
I would like to know, because that does make a difference in the total amount that is paid out to, or for an employee to be on the staff.
You're referring to the dollar amount, because part of what I see, at least as part of even our health insurance issue, is it's not so much that the benefits that great, and compared to other insurances. It's the fact that, again, we have, our risk is that much higher. And so we're having to pay more in premiums than we would if we, again, and I can't say for sure, but I can say with good confidence that it's probably because we're not the healthiest. But that's part of what our, so we're talking dollars. Yeah, we're probably paying more for premiums than other communities, but it's not because it's a better insurance.
No, yeah, and that's what I'm asking, is the dollar amounts, do they coincide, do they correlate? Because that's critical. I mean, if we're having to pay X dollars to keep the same employee, or that they keep at X dollars, I mean, I'd like to know.
Okay.
Mayor,
Thank you very much.
I got a question.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Leo.
I think if I heard correctly, you made a comment that if we raise taxes, it'll help our economic development. Or no?
Me?
Yeah, or maybe I heard it somewhere else. No? Okay.
Okay, is there any other questions? Kelto, I'd like to just make a couple of comments too. And again, Fred, Santos, and staff, Hector, did a great job on this budget. And the thing I want to focus on is it is a balanced budget. And I know one of the meetings that we had last our meeting is, does this budget provide longevity? If we give these raises, are we going to have to cut back on employees, so on and so forth? Well, you can't tell about what your tax base is going to do and your sales tax. We're at risk of that. But based on everything being the same, the answer to that is yes. Now, again, as I stated, guys, we're at the high end of the tax rate. I mean, you can go on the TML website and look and see, and 83, 86, 94 cents is at the higher end. So it is a big number. If we stay the same, if we keep that tax rate the same at what we are now, we're going to drop our budget revenues by a little over 200,000, 214, something like that. And so if the desire of the council is to keep taxes the same, that's what we need to look at. We need to look at cutting a couple $100,000 worth of things that we've got in there so that we can meet our budget. But the other thing I want to stress is too, so the answer to the question about longevity, as best as we can tell, yes, at these rates. Now, remember too, you guys signed into place an ordinance that increases rates every year on the rate side, which will continue to generate a little additional revenue there. And as staff fix the problem, which is the meters, that's where we're losing the money. We're going to see some additional revenues there. And with, excuse me, the pandemic and other things, we didn't probably collect as aggressively as we should. So there'll be some additional revenues coming in there. But the thing to point out that we talked about, and the essential aspect of balancing this budget and making ourselves credit worthy, is having additional reserves and of being sure that we don't lose money. You know, and again, as we looked at last year, we had an audit, well, not last year, but the year before, showed an audit that reflected in the red. And so we want to ensure that we don't do that. And one thing that I want to look at, and again, to understand that this budget does not have any reserves budgeted in. Now, we're blessed, richly so, because Fred told me today, if you strip it all down, we've got some unrestricted funds. So we are not in bad shape. We've been blessed, primarily because of what STEC paid last year over and above. Second thing is we're blessed with ARP. We're gonna get 1.3 in about the next 30 days, and then next year we're gonna get another 1.3. Now that, understand guys, that's restricted, but there's ways that we can move that over into the budget. And James, to answer your question, you had a great question about infrastructure, and I probably, like the rest of you, if we could do 600,000 in streets, this would be amazing for us to accomplish. But if we're able to capture some of that ARP money and utilize it for something else and free up money to move in and accomplish more infrastructure, that would be something. But I'll tell you this, if we do $300,000 in infrastructure, it's $300,000 more than we've done in the last couple of years. So it's still a big improvement, and I don't want to belittle anything that we are able to accomplish in that regard. So as we move forward, again, you know, just kind of a high sign, low sign, how would you like Fred and Santos to proceed? Do we need to look at cutting some more? Are we comfortable with an increase in the tax rate? That doesn't mean we have to do it. We're not taking any action item. But again, for these guys to get your budget ready and see what to present as we move towards, they need to kind of know the feel for taxes. So again, basically where we are in a nutshell, we're in a good shape, guys, because we balance. At this point, we're balanced, and we're really, depending on what we do with the taxes, we're a couple $100,000. Councilman Leah.
Mayor, are we going to come back and visit this actual proposed, what we got today, where the council can go home and actually see what the 18, 19 current year-to-date and proposes, where we could dissect it?
James, yeah, I mean, that's what we've been talking about all along. We've been doing that. And so, yes, you are free to do that. And I've told you guys, and I recommend, you have questions, I mean, I'm free, I'd love to talk to you, but the two experts are right here. So you are free to talk to them about questions that you have. And I prefer that you hammer those out so that when we all get together, if you have a specific question, why is this way, or why is that way? Or, guys, if you have a specific desire, you want to see X, Y, Z done, you know, and that is your passion as a councilman, talk to the city manager and see if we can't work that in there. But again, we're cutting it off with a chainsaw right now. But as we get into August, we want to use a little knife. We don't want to make big changes, so these guys don't have to go back to the drawing board and refigure out where we're going to get money from.
As the council knows, most of the council members know, we are eventually gonna have to take a vote on the tax rate, whatever that is. So we have to take a vote as to what the tax rate, the proposed tax rate's gonna be. So that, again, for tonight's purposes, at least for me, to plan better, to get some idea, I do wanna plan the schedule to where we vote on it, again, preferably this month, sometime, and we approve the budget, again, the middle of September. But again, if we don't increase taxes, if we just keep what they call the no new revenue tax rate, it's hard for me to even say that. But anyway, it's, there's no need for a public hearing. If with the proposed taxes we're proposing, there is a need for public hearings, and there's gonna be a vote either way, on what the proposed rate is. Now, the reason the increase is there, the actual rate did increase. If you go even with a no new revenue tax rate, which means, again, we're not bringing any more revenue this year than we did last year. It's the same amount, and all we're saying here is that we're gonna keep what we're gonna bring in as far as revenue is same. And so that sits at 91 cents right now, which is still almost a 5 cent increase. Because again, the values have dropped, and that's the significance of values dropping for us. So again, I would like, if possible, to get some sort of clarity tonight on the tax, the increase or decrease of taxes. And then I do want to point out on this, and I don't think I shared this with us, but it is, as far as the actual tax increase, I think on average, most houses are about, I think the average value is about $60,000 for an average homestead. $61,000 what the appraisal district shows. So that's an increase, assuming we go with this tax rate, that's an increase of about $55 a year for the increase for an average household of 60, again, the value of $61,000. So that's what we show on average, what the increase, they would pay, the customer would pay additionally to what their current tax bill is.
At 91 cents,
At 94 cents.
at 94 cents.
Yes, sir.
It's 94.5, right?
Yes, sir.
Not 91.
So, yes, sir. And that's basically what it boils down to, for the average household here as far as what the assessed value is on most homes. But we know it's an increase nonetheless. And again, I want to be clear that they don't just pay $55 on top of what they currently pay. So that would be the increase of taxation on average. But that's kind of where we are.
And what's the highest we could go on tax rate?
You could go I think before petitioning an election is a little under, is 94 cents. I think we kept it right under where you have to go to elect, well, you could have, somebody could potentially petition for an election to go, to have people vote on the increase.
Anything above 94.
Anything above 94 cents, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's, the legislature, it used to be, legislature, I say hamstring the cities, the communities, because the legislature no longer allows you to go up with 8%, what was 8% on your M&O side of your tax rate. Now it's 3.5%. And so, yeah, people have to be really careful not to go over that threshold, because then you could potentially have an election for the people if they don't want to pay any more taxes. Yes, sir.
Mayor,
Council? Yes.
I have
Councilman.
another question. I have other questions. So on this salary, you're proposing that we get employees up to the minimum pay rate? Is that what you're proposing?
Yes, sir. The minimum, yes, sir.
Okay. And there's 30-something, or, so it's a minimum pay grade, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, the other question I had was, okay, this is where I have a problem understanding, because when we did the TML survey, we were at 80%. Everybody was at 80% of the salaries that were made by employees with those just job descriptions across the state.
Yes, sir.
So, how can we be so far behind right now?
I guess my question would be is whenever you cut, to me, I personally, and again, I wasn't here to see the analysis that was done as far as how you came to the 80%. But what I'm getting at is
TML.
right. What I'm getting at, I don't know how that was formulated here. I guess is how you came to the 80% of 80% of what?
Of the TML salary survey.
And how did that come to? How did y'all get that average? Is what I'm asking.
Well, they gave us the
Comparable cities.
comparable cities across the state, right? Okay, so 80%, 70%, 90%, 100%. If we went 100% up there, then everybody would be making what everybody else, the top end, in other words, for that decision. So we decided on 80% because that's all that could be afforded at the time. So I understand how we're at the we're still trying to catch up, that's what I'm trying to figure
I
out.
think part of that is part of what Santos alluded to. You have the inflation, how often do you update that? I think that was part of the recommendation, as part of the study, is, or just like anybody else, I'll give you an example, teacher salary. You don't pay this teacher the same year every year, there's a constant increase most of the time. I'm not saying every year, but you do see that increase. So the question becomes, do you not ever address that? Or do you say, like most employers, and say, hey, look, we're gonna give you an increase this year, even if it's a COLA? And so I don't know how, on that end, if there was any analysis on top of that. I guess my only question, other thing would be is I think that addresses for people that, like